What's up, everybody? Today I'm working on this Cub Cadet XT1. So this mower is in rough shape and I'm getting ready to work on it. It has a Kohler 7000 series. I'm fixing to check the oil, as you see here, and oil looks fine, but it needs to be changed. So that's going to be addressed. But I'm not going to show everything I do on this video, by the way. You can see the fuel filter needs to be changed, and the fuel line needs to be changed, and there's the problem with the sector gear. I guess somewhere down the line it just got chewed off or something happened to it. We don't know what happened other than it's broken. So this mower needs a lot of work. Deck repair, steering repair, and the engine repair. This was part 1, so we're going over the engine. So the chapter 1 will be engine repair. So you can see that's one of our problems there. And it needs to be cleaned out, which we'll do in another time. And that's what it needs. You can see the engine is filthy and dirty. That's what it needs. And the gas, there's no gas in it, and it had an issue with the crap in the gas because there was debris in there, and it was hard to see, but there was. And you can see I'm about to change the fuel filter here, and the oil filter obviously needs to be changed. And so that's what's going on there. And there's the sector gear again. The gear's fine for the pinion gear. And there's a massive oil leak. That's why it's dirty. And right, here's the model and spec. There's the engine information. As you can see, the air filter here is dirty and needs to be changed. I'm about to open and y'all see. The engine's dirty, so I have suspicion the air filter is dirty. So this is the air filter I'm about to pull out. If you look, it needs a lot of work. It would need more than just an air filter. It would need its valves adjusted and so on. And you can see it's crumbling apart. And what would happen is that engine would run. Now these 7000 series Kohlers have a few issues. They're known for their starters to go out and break. They've fixed that a couple times. They're also known for blown head gaskets. Talking with mechanics, that's what they do. Then they have an issue with the choke system. There's other issues, but these are actually fairly decent engines. At least they're not a Courage engine. So that's another thing I'm thankful about, is it's not a Courage engine. That is a single cylinder. The twin cylinders are good. Here I am trying to remove the fuel line from the fuel pump. So I'm going to flush the gas, and I have a special way of sucking it out. At home, you may not have a special tool to suck that gas out. You'll just have to use an air compressor if you have one and blow it out. Or try to get as much, just let it dry as much as you can. Like get a rag and try to find a way to get it in. Find a way to get in the whole gas tank filling tube and try to clean up what's in there, and then try to vacuum it out. You may have to take the gas tank off. That's one way to do it. Now also you can take the gas tank off, put gas in it, swish it around, and try to get as much of that crud out that way. Some of them there's like a little, it's not like a cavity, but it's hard to do that on some gas tanks because the filler tube goes down, and it's like a little, I don't know what to say, it's like it's hard to explain. So you can see I'm getting ready to stick that in there, stick that tool in there, and you'll see probably in a minute. So here's the camera angle, and it's on time lapse. I'm blowing it out, and I'm looking in there for any debris. And if you look closely, you may not be able to see it on time lapse. I'm going to see plastic shards flying out. You can also see debris flying out, and I'm sucking it out And this is on time lapse. I fill it with gas and I suck all the boogers out of the tank. That's what I call them, boogers, or just little dirt in there. And it turned out really nice. It cleaned out very well. And then I showed y'all in there, and there was a part that I thought was actually the where it wouldn't go, and that's just the inlet hole for the tank. And here I am installing the fuel filter. And that was a challenge, and it was hard. I'll tell you something, it was very impossible to put that fuel line on to the bottom nipple, and I was scared of breaking it, but luckily I got it on there in one piece without breaking it off. I wish they would use a fuel tank bushing instead of that. So that would be one thing I wish they would do, is have a fuel tank bushing so you can replace it. Yeah, they're known to leak, but you can fix that. Then I'm putting the fuel filter on. There's an arrow that points. Now remember, the arrow points the direction flow of fuel. Okay, keep that in mind. You can. And I show y'all the arrow, and y'all may not be able to see it, but it's probably on there, and it tells you the direction the fuel flows. The arrow points to the direction the fuel flows, so keep that in mind. And then, sorry for the smaller screen. My camera angle was wrong, and I wanted to show y'all what I was doing. So, I'm doing that. And then, I try to fit it on there snug, and I use the hose clamps again. I actually added a new fuel line to it. Instead of using old fuel line, I put new fuel line to make sure there's no crap, or crud rather, in the lines. So I replaced the fuel filter and the fuel lines to ensure that none of the debris in the tank had made it through the fuel lines. And that's actually what we do where I work, and I work at a lawnmower shop now. That's also a hardware store. Along with that, we also know that people are going to need their equipment fixed. See, I'm trying to put the hose clamps on, and I put it on this little tube thing, as y'all can see. That was no effort at all. And if y'all look, I'm trying to point something out, and I decided I would instead just do a voice record over this. You see, I'm putting gas in it now. I put the dinosaur juice, as what Terrell calls it. He calls it dinosaur juice. And then I end up putting enough in it. Later on, test running it and letting the oil burn off from the valve adjustment, it ran out of gas while I was in the break room waiting for my lunch to be ordered. And I went back and the switch was on and it was out of gas. And now at least the battery didn't get drained. Now I'm trying to explain valve adjustment. Now what y'all can do is have one valve open, one valve closed, and set it. But sometimes that isn't an option on some engines. Because of the compression release, you may set it on the compression release, and then it's way off. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's just easier and quicker, and you can also do other tasks that way too, like check for your compression with a leak down tester. And you can also check for a blown head gasket that way too. So basically you're just not really doing a lot with one valve open, one valve closed, because you can do more with both valves closed. And remember, don't forget to have the piston at top dead center, and it's at top dead center twice when the valves are closed. So what would happen is that it would end up being hard to adjust, and they'll be tight, and you want them loose and floppy. If they're tight and you adjust them, you're going to have clearances that are way off, more than likely, or it's not going to run well at all. So make sure they're floppy. Here I am using some silicone because they did that from the factory. We set our machines to factory specifications where I work. I don't do my specifications because I'll do what the boss is told. I don't do it my way there. I do what the boss says. So, as y'all can see, I'm trying to make sure that the silicone is on there. And I clean these valve covers. You can clean the old silicone off with a, what is it? With a wire wheel. Now here I am setting the valves. I loosen the coupling nut, and I and I take my feeler gauge and I stick it in between the rocker arm and the valve stem. Alright, and then I take my feeler gauge and I move back and forth as I'm turning the outside coupling nut. And then when I find the right setting, I hold the coupling nut still and I tighten it with a torque screwdriver, as you see here. Sometimes you can use a Torx screwdriver, or you can use a Torx socket. It's best to use a torque wrench to ensure it won't come undone. As y'all can see, I'm tightening it down here. And I'm going to do the same to the other valve. And then I end up making sure it doesn't come loose. I check my clearances again, it's acceptable. And I do the same on the bottom valve. And you'll see that here in a minute. So what I did was, first off, I loosen the coupling nut and the inside nut. Then I check for clearance. I slowly turn my wrench as the valve feeler gauge gets more stiff until it has very little resistance. I then pull it out and I tighten it. And then I pull the feeler gauge out and tighten it with a wrench. And I tighten it as tight as I can get it without breaking something, without turning the wrench at the same time. And that's how you set valves in a nutshell. And I stick my feeler gauge in, it seems to be acceptable. Sorry, it's cold outside and my allergies are bugging me. So y'all can see I didn't get those valve covers removed. At home you can use a wire wheel or a razor blade if you have one. And I put my camera on my lap because I needed to do something. And then here I am tightening up the valve covers. As I'm doing this, I make sure I do a cross pattern to make sure they don't leak. You just can't go like pointing like on a square pattern. You got to go in a cross pattern. And here I am not realizing I have grease on my face. That's part of it. And I've been told that to actually have the mower raised up so the oil won't drain on the floor. And I tighten it. I already did the other valve, and I put silicone on the valve cover. Then I put it on. You can do that with Briggs engines. You can do that with Kohler engines. Those are the ones you usually do that on, and some Honda engines have that. Sometimes I think it's better than certain paper gaskets, but sometimes paper gaskets are your only option on some engines. And there is that done, and then
he runs now.
I'll have another video on that. So this is part 1 of this video. So
mower deck works. Should be ready.
Now I also did a few other things I didn't put in the video. I ended up putting in a new oil filter, new spark plugs, new air filter, and then I did clean the engine up. I used LA's Totally Awesome. I cleaned the engine block up because oil leak is a fire hazard. This is just a picture because I had some footage that I messed up trying to film where my camera kept falling. If y'all look, that is just a picture of this lawnmower engine through the process of working on it. And so these Kohler 7000 series engines are decent engines. I wouldn't say they're a command, but they are good for what they are. Thank you for watching. Bye.